It seems like the last couple weeks, every video I'm looking at on YouTube in the world of tabletop role playing is about the new Dungeon Master's Guide from Wizards of the Coast. It's getting some great reviews. Looks like it's a pretty good book. I'm excited to take a look at it myself. However, I have another book here, one that I got a few weeks back, and I've been looking through and I'm super excited about. And I want to share some of my initial thoughts with you on this book. This might be the best Game Master's Guide I personally have ever laid my hands on. It is the Tales of the Valiant Game Master's Guide. So, for our TOV Tuesday today, let's take a quick look through the Tales of the Valiant Game Master's Guide and see what's in here. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. I'm Joe, and this is the GM Toolbox, your go-to place to get all the tools you need to enhance your TTRPG games and your Tales of the Valiant games. Before we dive into it today, I just want to take a minute and remind you, if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me to grow, bring you more great content. Make sure you hit the like button, click the bell to get notified when I bring new videos out. All these things help to expand the channel, allow me to grow, and allow me to keep bringing you more great content. Well, everybody, it has been a minute since I've had a video. I think about 3 weeks or so. I went on a family vacation. I came home from that vacation, and then I got sick. So it has been a struggle to get back on track, making some videos, but I am feeling better now, and I wanted to really dive into the Game Master's Guide from Tales of the Valiant because, it came out a few weeks ago, and it is just so good. And there's so much to cover on this book, and I want to get into all of it, but that is not possible in one video. So today we're just going to take a quick look through it, see what's in here, kind of get an overview of it. I'll give you some of my initial thoughts on some stuff, and then as our TOV Tuesdays continue, we will take some videos and we will break down specific portions of this book and different things because it is a wealth of knowledge. I do want to continue doing our TOV class comparison series. That series is great, and I'm really enjoying doing that. We'll probably be back next week with another one of those. But intermingled with those videos, we will get into some of these Game Master Guide videos as well. But today, let's just take a look at the guide as a whole, see what's in here, see a couple of the things that maybe I particularly really liked. But before we do that, real quick, if you haven't noticed, we have a new logo. We decided to go and hire a wonderful fantasy artist who works on a lot of projects in the industry, including some of my favorite projects like Rise of the Drow. And he did my new logo and my banner for me on my YouTube channel here. So thank you, Larry, for doing all that work. I'm going to put a link to his site where you can check out some of his other work and possibly hire him if you're looking for your own character art or work on maybe a book you're making or maybe a logo. Larry did some fantastic work for us. So thank you so much. Okay, so with all that said, I think it is time to open up the Game Master's Guide of Tales of the Valiant and take a look. So let's shoot over to the PDF since that'll be easier to show you. So here it is, the Tales of the Valiant Game Master's Guide. And you see I have the window pulled up on the side here with all the bookmarks and chapters and stuff like that. I was kind of going through it a little earlier because there's just so much good stuff in here. So we're going to take a quick overview look. Like I said, there's just so much in here. There's no way we can really get into the nitty gritty of everything, but I just want to give you an overview. Unlike the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide, this has a very functional, usable layout. I understand that the new Dungeon Master's Guide also is laid out much better, but I haven't put my hands on that yet, so I can't speak to that one. This one, however, they did a great job. Kobold Press did a wonderful job laying this out, making it useful, taking us through chapter by chapter, and even me as a experienced game master who's been running games for years, I certainly got some stuff out of this. And obviously, it's going to give us some good general stuff about how to be a game master, how to make adventures, world building, things like that. But then we get into some stuff that I feel is a little more TOV specific, though very easily adaptable to your 5e games if you're still looking to play some 5e, but you want some good game master guidelines and resources because, like I said, I kind of want to see the DMG too, because we can never, as game masters, we can never have too much good information. So regardless of what game you're playing, I think that this book is going to be beneficial to anybody who's running games, be it D&D, TOV, or anything else that falls into this general fantasy genre. So let's take a look here. So obviously, we're going to start off with the chapter on how to be a GM, and this is a great one for new people coming in. It kind of breaks things down, like what are our different player styles, right? We have like people who are like the actor and the power gamer and the wild card. Kind of gives us a little bit of prep, a little bit of footing on what we might get ourselves into. How to get started, right? How to facilitate a game, letting you know you won't be perfect at this, what things to do before you play, stuff like that. Planning sessions. This is I mean, I can't think of anything that's probably more useful than this. And I can't remember if it was who it was. One of the other YouTubers was even talking about how in the 2014 version of the GMG, there wasn't much in that about how to plan a session. There really wasn't. Like they're like, just take some notes and wing it basically. And this gives us a little bit more about how to craft encounters and things like that, and what we should be putting into our planning. Uh, and then later on, it's going to help us do things like homebrewing and stuff like that as well. What's involved in running a session? What does this look like? This whole chapter is really, really great for new GMs, especially. Like, I mean, I read through it. There were little nuggets in there. I was like, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. But this is definitely a chapter that's geared towards, hey, if you never GM'd, start here. And they did a very, very good job with this specific aspect of it. Um, then gets into adventures and campaigns. So, what are the flavors of fantasy, right? We have our dark fantasy, our high fantasy, our low fantasy, portal fantasy, science fantasy, sword and sorcery, weird fantasy, right? Kind of breaks down these different ones and lets us know like what's the differences, right? Like high fantasy, our typical D&D game, things like that, Lord of the Rings, and what most of us think about when we think about D&D, where like sword and sorcery is still kind of similar to high fantasy or even low fantasy, but a little bit different focus. And they use, and it's a great example, and it's funny because I literally just watched this movie again last week. Was it used Conan? The Conan, I watched the Conan movies, but Conan goes back to the books and stuff like that, the short stories from years ago. But that's a great example of what a sword and sorcery kind of thing looks like. And, our weird fantasies like our Cthulhu or HP Lovecraft type stuff. So really cool there. They do break down things that, many of us are probably, experience with like our tiers of play and stuff like that, how to run a published adventure. Um, I do like this section, how it talks about elements of adventure. What's the structure, the introduction, the middle, the conclusion, our quests and counter mixing and things like that. They even, go into things like, campaigns, campaign building, stuff like that. So, themes, how to begin a campaign, all sorts of stuff, how to create an arc and, the structure of your campaign, all real like stuff like this is even useful for experienced GMs, especially if you're somebody who maybe has only run published adventures and you want to branch off and maybe do a little more home brewing. Well, how do I structure this? Or, what I've done recently is I've taken a series of one shots and tied them together and created an arc to, run these different one shots mixed in with my own homebrew campaign all together. And this kind of thing right here really helps with that kind of game design. So really, really great section here, on adventures and campaigns and things like that. The book then gets into world building, and this is where I really, uh, really this book comes alive for me because world building is something I think we all want to do. And I know when I first did it back in high school, I drew the whole world map, and I have a whole notebook still on my shelf right behind me of the geography and the people and the gods and the myth of creation. I did all this stuff that really never came into play. But I did it. It's fun exercise. It's fun to create worlds, don't get me wrong. And this will definitely help you do that thing. But this is the spiral outward method that they talk about here. This is something that I'm a big proponent of now. Start with a small area and start building out, right? Show and don't tell, collaborative world building, right? This is something else I do a lot of. I had a player when I was starting a new campaign with players. I was making this homebrew world, and I did draw the continent, but I didn't really develop much of it other than the section that we were in. And then one of the players is like, well, I'm a cleric, I think it was. And I'm like, okay, well, who's your god? He goes, well, what are the gods? I go, I haven't made them yet. You tell me, who's the god? What are they a god of? And my players started coming up with names of gods and names of locations and places where they're from. And then I found out where on my map. I looked at my map, said, all right, well, that sounds like it would be over here. That's a good location for that. And we worked together and built this world. So really, really neat section on world building. They even talk about mapping your world and things like that. They give us, obviously some, generators for like names and things like that of locations, how to make a map and different civilizations and really great stuff in this section for creating your own world for your TOV or whatever TTRPG game you're playing. Okay, this next section, I'm going to say this is so far this is the section I really like is the advanced combat section. Combat is such a huge part of our games. It's the part we all kind of really look forward to. Let's roll for initiative and let's get into the nitty gritty, right? This is where we get to use most of our abilities and stuff like that. And they talk about things like mapping the battlefield. They do a great job on combat encounter building. Like these different zones of an encounter. How to budget encounters. What the way they kind of talk about CR in here was really good because we all know CR was a little broken before, but they kind of broke it down by different tiers here. So for PCs of first to fourth level, you basically have an encounter budget. No matter what, you're gonna have an encounter budget, and you're gonna basically have a CR number, and you have to, your encounter budget is based on that CR. So if we have, for instance, for it says here for PCs of first to fourth level, your encounter budget is equal to the total of all PC levels divided by 4. So let's imagine we had level 4 PCs. Okay, that's 16 total divided by 4 is 4. So our CR budget is 4. We could do 4 CR1s or we can do 1 CR4. We can do 2 CR2s, right? That's kind of how the budget works. Now, when we get for PCs from 5th to 20th level, your encounter budget is equal to the total of all your PC levels divided by 2. Okay, cool. So now, it kind of helps with that the CR kind of breaking at those higher levels. We're doing a different formula for the budget at those higher levels. But they do mention that particularly powerful PCs above 10th level might find a more appropriate challenge with the following increased encounter budget. And note that the sample encounters below don't use the increased encounter budget. So you basically what they're saying is that you may want to bump it based on your party. But what they say here is for powerful PCs of 11th through 16th level, your encounter budget is equal to the total of all PC levels multiplied by 0.75. And then for 7th through 20th level, your encounter budget is equal to just the total of all PC levels. So let's say we have for level 20s, well, 20, 40, 60, 80. That is our encounter budget. So we might throw 4 CR20s at them. Maybe we'll throw 2 CR30s and a CR20 at them, like something like that. So they are definitely, modifying this, and they'll tell you, they'll say right here that you're gonna have to use your judgment as a GM based on your party's abilities, your players' understanding of the game, things like that may come into effect. These are still guidelines, but it feels like they're a little bit better guidelines than we had back in old 5e, right? So really, really good section here on advanced combat. Now, what I was really, really liking, there's some more stuff in here, special combat scenarios and special monster scenarios, which really, really cool on things like, brawls and mobs and, colossus enemies, minions and horde of minions. I mean, I always love minions. So they do have rules for minions in here, which I have, adopted from, MCDM's book. And so now to have something here that's, more geared specifically towards TOV, I'll probably use in my game. But the variant rules, this is the section that I'm definitely having the most fun with when we were talking about things like the bloodied rule or how to do called shots, expanding the doom system from the monster vault, dirty tactics like throwing sand in someone's eyes. Like we have mechanics for that here. How to move through an enemy space. We have a rule for that. Or if we're doing a shoving match, what happens if I win by a lot? Can I push somebody over? Things like that. tumbling rules, and what about cover? I hide behind a wooden table, right? I flip the table and I hide behind it. It's providing me cover. But when they hit that cover, let's say somebody's, we have a guy using a gun or even a bow or throws an axe, right? If they miss me, but they would have hit me had it not been for cover, rather than just being a miss, it now hits the cover. And that cover takes damage. We already have statistics in the player's guide, and it's on the back of our GM screen on how much what the hit points of an item is. So that cover will eventually get destroyed. So I like that idea as well. And they kind of show the guy here hiding behind the tree as these magic missiles or fire bolts or whatever are hitting the tree is getting destroyed and it's not going to provide him cover forever. So really really cool rule there. We have stuff for morale. The injury rules, I really do like the injury rules because when you combine that with, let's say, called shots, like I shot him in the arm or I shot him in the eye, well, what does that mean? So we have some injury rules here, either that we can roll on or we can just pick from. um, and you don't have to use this specific table. This is the table they give us, but there's tons of great injury tables out there that you can use as well. But they're giving us some ideas around how to use this stuff in Tales of the Valiant. Parting shots, like when you're running away and still turning around and firing your bow. Um, all sorts of really really cool stuff. So this variant rule section, tons and tons of fun, and this is one we'll definitely do some videos on later on. They also, though, not only do this for combat, but they do this for exploration. They have advanced exploration rules. They also have advanced social encounter rules, things that will help. What's the difference between allies and antagonists? Backgrounds of NPCs, quest givers, all sorts of really, really neat stuff. And not just that, but like how to generate an NPC. And this is some really useful information because we create these NPCs, but what do they really need? And I know for some of you more experienced GMs, this is probably old hand. But for people who maybe haven't had to think about this, sure, we need to name them. What do they look like? What are some of their statistics? What do they do for a living? What are some of their traits? What are their bonds and their flaws and things like that? What is it that they want more than anything? What's their motivation? What are their fears? That's another thing I always like to add is like, what do they want and what are they afraid of? Right? Those two things to me help a lot with NPCs. They give us, ideas on how to role play those NPCs and make them relatable, but make them unique and things like that. So the social section I found very, very useful. We do have some advanced options for adventuring, things like more curses and diseases and traps and stuff like that. More magic items and they have rules for dread. They have some new poisons and all sorts of stuff, rewards and siege weapons. Some really, really useful stuff in here. Like everything I'm seeing in this book, I'm like, that's useful. That's useful. And it's not hard to find. It's all where I would expect it to be, which is a big divergence from that old DMG. Um, and we get into the homebrewer's toolbox, which one of my favorite sections in this book, um, where they help us to create our own Tales of the Valiant homebrew things like creating a TOV background, creating TOV subclasses, creating heritages and lineages. They give us guidelines around each of the TOV classes. Then we get into creating magic items, and they even give us, I think in the previous section, they gave us some new magic items as well. So all sorts of really useful stuff for homebrewing, how to create new hazards and other dangers, things like traps and stuff, how to create new monsters. A lot of times Cobalt Press, when they release books, they'll be like, hey, community, write a monster and submit it, and maybe it'll be in our book. Well, here's the guidelines on how to write that monster. So really, really well designed, well thought out, useful tools for a GM in this book. The last section here is going to be some random encounter tables and some stuff to help dress up your campaign, things like that. Just give you some good inspiration, tables, things like that, to help you out with your campaign. Right, fantasy inspiration section here. They recommend books and things like that to read. Just kind of like the stuff that's like we all not maybe not all have read, but the stuff that like it probably inspired a lot of us. I mean, they even had like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe listed on here. The Princess Bride, right? Like just some of the classics that we love. I wouldn't be surprised if Conan the Barbarian is on here. Like Lord of the Rings, things like that, like stuff that we all should maybe dive into. So if you're looking for a good book to read to help inspire your campaign, there's a great list here. I wonder if they did a section. Yep, films and television shows are on here as well. Which lately I've been going through some of those old sword and sorcery ones. Like I watched Conan and a few other those low budget old school ones, which are really, really bad, yet somehow fun to watch. So some really great stuff in here. And I'm always looking for a good list of stuff. And I see things on here I don't think I've ever watched. So maybe I'll go and watch a few of the things on this list. And then some other games, things like that that might help inspire you. Look at that. They put Myst on here. I loved Myst, the Myst series. I used to play that on my PC back in the 90s. Great game. So that was the Game Master's Guide from Tales of the Valiant. And I know we didn't get to the nitty gritty. I didn't want to. I want to do videos on these individual sections because there's some really good stuff in here that warrants a good deep dive. I just wanted to give you an overview of what's in the book and some of my initial impressions, which is mainly positive. Most of the stuff I find in here, I found very useful. I found easy to find. Got me excited about wanting to try things, especially that section on some of the combat stuff. I really, really liked. So very, very excited to finish reading this because I have not read the whole book, but I have gone through many sections and picked out stuff that I really liked. And I'm still basically most nights I'm sitting in bed at night before I go to bed, reading a few pages or a section or something. And it has just been such a great read. It's one of those books I definitely want to just read cover to cover because there's just so much good stuff. So take a look at the Game Master's Guide for Tales of the Valiant, whether you're playing TOV or not. I'm telling you, this is going to be an excellent book for you as a game master. But hopefully you are playing TOV because for me, it has become my primary system. I'm loving it. I'm having so much fun playing it. Even played a game over my vacation with a bunch of family and friends, and everybody had a blast. So I'll put a link in the description below to where you can pick that up. That's my affiliate link, so please use that link as it helps me out. And you can pick up any of the other Tales of the Valiant or Kobold Press products from their store through that link. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, everybody. I'm sorry I was gone for so long, but I am back, and I'm going to keep bringing you some great content. I'll bring you some more later this week even. But until then, thank you for coming on this journey with me, and I'll see you next time.